Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sue. And I'm so thrilled to be back with Suzanne Schneps, who, as she said jokingly, but I believe is true, has the magic wand for parents of teenagers. And we're all looking for that. Who doesn't want someone who can tell us the magic solution? So, psychologist Suzanne Schneps, she's seen enough.
Nice to be here.
She's seen enough and lived through enough with parents of teenagers to really be able to give us some rock solid advice about those times when we're so clear that our kids hate us, when they are interacting with us with all of the signs of hatred. So I want to start with this one question, because every time we talk about this, this is what comes up. Let's get it out of the way. Tell us why they don't really hate us.
Okay. Well, first of all, they don't just show it. They tell you. They tell you that they absolutely hate you and that you are the world's worst parent. Personally, I think it's important for you all to know that I was president of the meanest moms club of the whole world, not even just the United States. Got a few executive vice presidents, but absolutely president. And, now we all like each other a lot. And they laugh about it. Um, you know, it's what they're really doing is they're saying how they feel about lots of your decisions, how they feel about it's really not about you as much as it is the rules that are out there and their own incredible discomfort. But it feels absolutely positively horrible. So what can you say to yourself? Like, is there, you're giving your life to them and you're trying to do everything and they're saying, I hate your guts. First of all, is to kind of remember that it's really, I know this is going to sound nuts, but it's actually totally true, Sue. If they can tell you that, it really means they love you. I am much more worried about the kid who cannot show their parent or say to their parent, I can't stand you, you're awful. That's the kid that doesn't feel secure in the relationship. And I know it doesn't really feel good, okay, but it is out of a healthier place in the relationship that they can tell you you're absolutely lousy. And then you need to find your good friend. We all need friends at this point. The one that you can tell that it was really awful, that they said this, they did this, because you need support at this time. You need support. And can you not take it personally? Well, if you're able to do that, you're really amazing, because I don't think it's possible, and it's like you gotta cut yourself some slack, because it feels really awful that the people that you love unconditionally, okay, are telling you that you're awful. And
okay, so let's just get into here's the moment, right? The moment where you have slaved all day long, and often it's around food, and the food goes on the table, the kid tastes the food and says, this is disgusting, I hate you, whatever, or they don't say anything, they get up and leave. Now, are there things for us to respond to those moments? Like going through all different scenarios right now with you, can you give us language? What do you say at that moment?
Okay, see, I think you don't say anything, because I think that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting to engage, and they're waiting to get into a fight with you. Okay? So I think saying nothing, which is the hardest parent thing ever, especially for people like me that are talkers, don't say anything. And then later send a text. Okay? We can play their game too. Okay? And send a text and go, just curious, what would have worked better for you for dinner? Don't play the game. They're looking for the fight, because it's not necessarily about you. They got off the phone and they found out that they weren't invited to something that they were hoping to be invited to, and now they're in a bad mood, and it's much easier to get in a fight with you. You've heard all this before, and then they won't have to feel it. Don't respond. Not responding is the best tool.
Okay, but
it's really hard. And since I'm not a dentist, I recommend TMJ, just so clench your teeth.
All right. So what I want to say is that, yes, and Stephanie says, oh my God, say nothing, Suzanne Schneps, you are a goddess. But she's a big fan of yours anyway. So Stephanie, yay. But what I want to say is that once you tell me that underneath this is some other story, I kick into, we need to get to the bottom of this.
Okay. And how do you get to the bottom of things with an adolescent? The more questions
not well.
The more questions you ask, the more annoying you are. Okay. You know, the classic thing that I always remember was the teen that came to see me, Sue, that really didn't want to be there. And ultimately I said, okay, could we just play? We played spit. I don't know if you know, it's a card game. We're down on the floor. We're not talking. And all of a sudden she says to me, you know, I saw emails. My father's having an affair. Well, you know, we were talking. I just keep playing. If you don't talk, they know you want to know. Okay. They're much more likely to come to you. Now, this advice, of course, is excellent unless you're worried they're going to hurt themselves. That's a whole separate story. Okay. But they're only going to get into a fight with you as you ask questions. Why do you need to know? Everything's your business. It's my business. I'm not telling you, is the general attitude. Stay chill. But at the same time, this is going to be really hard. Be loving.
I hate you. Oh my God, I love you.
Yeah, no. I, you know, instead, you know, you see they're hurting. You're guessing you've put it together because you know them well. You know, this is time for the Ritz-Carlton approach. You know, you leave them to, what are those things called? Chocolate kisses on their bed, and just say, you know, just brightening your day. Love you. Don't talk about it.
Okay, that requires my heart to not feel like it's in my throat and I'm gonna cry any second, right? Because the amount of hate coming my way is more than I can tolerate as a person. So, for example, you know, there are kids who they ignore you. Like it might even be worse than getting yelled at, right? Like they literally don't respond to you talking to them, walk out of the room, look at their phones. Like that's horrible. How do we deal with that?
Okay, you got to start distracting yourself. Okay, and you got to start figuring out. They're saying, "I'm growing up. I don't need you," which of course is not true, because they need you way beyond this period. And you need to distract yourself. You need to have things to do. Okay, and the more they're not talking, the more that you need to have something to do. What are things you can do? I can tell you that if I have teens in the office that don't talk, yeah, I have the best plants. I just water them and I get rid of the leaves and whatever. I'm doing something else. Okay. What is it you can do? Okay. Leave the house. Snowing is pretty terrible out there right now, but you know, like go for a ride. Go do something. And don't what you're doing is allowing yourself to stay there to feel even worse. Okay. And if they're not talking and they're ignoring you, proceed on. But let them know. But since we want them to tell us where they're going, just say, hey, you know, I don't care what you say. You know, I'm going to the grocery store. Okay.
I think that's such a great idea because you're going to plan for it. You're going to know that your kid is going to do that again and again and again. And what's your plan? And you have plans and someone else has a podcast they listen to, but that is so great. Like, just don't see your role, because I think I felt that all the time. Like my role was to help them feel better, because if I could get to the point where it's like, oh, they're hurting, so now I want to help solve the hurt and the pain. But you're saying that's not our job.
It's not your job because you're not going to be able to do it. Okay. They know you love them, even though they tell you they hate you. They know you love them. And you can't make it better when their friend dumped them. You cannot. Or when they read something that somebody thought they looked terrible, you know, and they read it on some whatever, or it was a TikTok, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're not going to make them feel better. Okay. And your empathy, they're not looking for it. Okay. They're not looking for it. They're looking for their peers. Okay. And you are just setting yourself up to be the dumping ground for the feelings. By the way, wait a minute. Wait.
Sure, go for it.
You know, I think all these ideas that I'm now talking about are great. And I truly believe, Sue, that if you can get to doing them 80%, you win an award. No parent cannot respond to this all the time. And you got to give yourself some slack when you do. I mean, it's just not possible.
Okay, so that might be the time where you call up your friend and say, I get a star. I really did this well. Okay, Lori has a great question. How do you have conversations about things that need to happen, though when you can't get through, they're mean mad? For example, college acceptance didn't pan out, how to redirect to plan B, or their grades are totally tanking and they're just mad and they're sabotaging their options. That's such a good one, Lori.
Okay, well, Lori asked two separate questions. Okay, and by the way, a lot of grades are tanking during COVID, just saying. Okay, I think that the bottom line is you want to give them some control, okay, because they feel they have no control. I think you need to say that you welcome the chance to have a conversation. Could they suggest, here are 5 times, I don't really care how many, what would work to have the conversation, that, the topic is no surprises, okay, but you've given them some control, and put in one that that they're going to pick because it's least convenient for you, okay, and they'll know that, and that's the one that they'll pick, and then at least you've given them something, okay, you've given them control, and you've given it to a time when it doesn't work for them. Secondly, they cannot tolerate long conversations. Okay, so your lengthy preamble, how you love them, and it's all happens for the best, and blah, blah, blah with college and all that, cut it. Make your points, okay, because you're going to lose them, okay? They cannot tolerate the long conversation, okay? Now with the grades, make your point and set up what has to be. The bottom line with that is you are the parent, okay? And the kid that has currently for the third quarter, that's brilliant, far smarter than I'll ever be, that has 5 Fs, really, I think we need some control here, okay? It's not okay. And they're looking for some control, even though they don't tell you that. So it's giving them some control about when, it's making sure you make your points and make them quickly. Okay. Now let's say they won't do it, which of course is your next question. I already know it because we've dealt before. Then I think you say, I've sent you an email. Okay. I know they don't like emails, but it's too long to send in a text. Okay. And make your points, bullet them. Okay. And say, please send back an answer by such and such a time. Okay. They also think that you parents, including, I just heard this before. You say bye tonight. What does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. Pick a time. Who cares? Okay. If you want to make it midnight, that's, what the school does. 11:59.
Okay. So you brought up the point of you're the parent, but a lot of what you said beforehand is kind of like debunking that point of where we want to go. Don't talk to me like that. I'm the parent. You can't talk to me that way.
Okay. There's a difference between, let's see if I can say this articulately. There's a difference between their choice of words, their tone, their attitude, which is all directed at you, which is not pleasant and not always worth responding to, and the behavior that they're exhibiting out in the world that we have to address. So we do have to address the fact if they're failing 5 classes. You can't sit back and not. I mean, it might be that you're not going to college. Okay. I mean, things like that are reasonable. Okay. You have to address if you hear from the police that they have stolen from a store. Those are all things that are not about you and how they're responding to you, where you can be silent, but you do have to have a voice in what you see them doing.
Okay. So I can see that distinction, but I do know that there's a very large group of parents who do feel like this, you won't swear at me. You won't talk to me like that. You'll look at me when I'm talking to you, interrupt kind of the negative with demands because we believe we're the parents. So we are the parents, but we believe that that's our right to jump in and say that. So what's your response to that type of approach to parenting?
Okay. Look, nobody's going to encourage that your children talk to you and are disrespectful. Okay. The eye contact, which, by the way, just for your information, they have statistically noticed that eye contact is significantly less right now because there's so many times on screen and I'm looking at your face. Okay. So that's just for your all information. And I think it better once you're in that position and they're talking to you like that. Your control can be just simply to say, we're ending the conversation, but your world isn't continuing if it's important enough to you until we can do this in a different way, and just end the conversation. But to get into it at that moment is only to invite them to do more. But if you feel you must address it and take control, which it can be reasonable, it's just to say, we're done. We're done.
And then you try and revisit it when it's not so inflamed, like so escalated.
Yeah, and you can say, let us know when you're ready to have this conversation. And I think the question becomes to the degree to which they're talking, and like that. So they roll their eyes. Okay, I'm going to tell you to let it go. Okay, they call you a mother effing. Okay, that's like not so okay. Okay, and that's when you got to stop the conversation. Okay, their tone is like, I don't even, tone is such an interesting kind of thing. They don't like your tone either. Okay, so I'm not sure it's worth going there with tone. Okay, tone is just an expression of the internal. Just look at it that way. But there are things you do have to stop the conversation.
Okay, so Lori wants to know when the mead mad is more than normal adolescence. Like, some of these are going to be red flags for a bigger problem, right? And is there any like hint you could give us as parents? When do you seek outside help?
I seek outside help. I would encourage people they are not getting out of bed. I'm really worried. Okay. Now they didn't come down for dinner tonight. Okay. I don't love it, but we're seeing this for 24, 48 hours. Two, you get a call from their friend that they're worrisome, that they're cutting. Absolutely seek outside help. That they're leaving the house at 2:00 in the morning and you don't know where they are and they come back at 5. Absolutely get help. They're jumping down from the roof to go see their boyfriend. Absolutely get help. Not a safe thing. You've gotten calls from the school that they're flunking everything and they were an A student and they're also not showing up. Get help.
So the threshold doesn't have to be so high right now. Although people are having trouble finding therapists who are available, and for sure, right. Good therapists. Like, yes. you get your eyes set on the one that everyone tells you is the best, like Suzanne Schneps, and then she says there's no availability, and then you want Suzanne Schneps and no one else. But hopefully there's availability. So I want to put out one more scenario that I think was such a rub on me when my kids were younger, which was the delight that they could have for their friends, for their father, and then turn to me with venom, like all happening in the same conversation. And so, that relative behavior feels really, really worse to me.
Okay. And it does feel worse, but because here they are. Okay. When I work with teens, it's very fun because, I can say what you couldn't say. Okay. And they think I'm brilliant. I'm really not. Okay. It's the same thing any reasonable parent would say, but it's so fun. Okay. As hard as that is, what you're seeing, you got to remind yourself, is the positive piece of your child. Okay. Why do they turn on you and treat you like that? Because it's so, this is where you told me not to do this, but I got to say it. It's a developmental piece. They're trying to separate. What do you want from me? It's like there actually is a reason. And do they truly deep down hate you? If something happened to you, they would be beside themselves. Okay. But they it's an expression of needing to separate, internal conflict, and you're seeing the part of them that can be in the world. And eventually, someday, will be for you too. Just not now.
Yeah, so all of the eventuallys, like I can tell you the eventuallys because Nikki said it's happening to her also, and she's glad to hear someone else experienced it. And I can tell you that the eventuallys have happened where I've had that same kid years later say, "You look stressed. Can I help you with something?" And be like, "Whoa, that was amazing." But the living through it,
it's awful. It's absolutely, positively awful. It is the hardest time. And you want to actually, I said to you when we started this, it's like they're saying they hate you. And at the moment, you're not such big fans of them. They should move to Alaska, give you a little break. But it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. And it's where you need the other people in your life. And you need the people you can be honest with about how really awful it was. Because it is really awful.
Yeah, it hurts to our core. Like to the very core.
It hurts to the very core because you've given so much.
Right. I mean, and like ticked off all of Suzanne Schneps' great advice, and still, that's what you get, right?
Yeah, you will get it. That's the real problem. You can't. Okay, the bottom line is you cannot prevent this. Okay, you cannot stop it. And the question becomes, how are you, as a loving, kind, wonderful parent, going to live through it and manage it? And you need your supports to be able to. And the other part you need is somebody when it really gets bad, a friend that you can call that comes over and deals with that kid. And I encourage that too.
Okay, I want to say that I think that's the most profound thing I've heard in so long, which is you can't prevent this. I mean, there is this sense that if we knew how to massage it properly, if we knew the right response to this, and I mean, honestly, wow, I could have used that advice years ago, that this is going to happen no matter how we behave. Like, that I'm sure everybody on this call right now has had the feeling like my breathing annoys my kid, and we're going to still continue to breathe, right? Like
it does.
We're going to.
It does.
Right. So to try to change who you are to placate the situation when it's going to happen anyway, like that is so brilliant. Thank you, Suzanne, for that.
It's really brilliant.
It is so brilliant to tell us, people who haven't gone through it yet, no matter what we do, this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. Anybody have a question before we get off? I'll share some of the things that people have said. Christine, living through it, it's so hard. I like to think they act the worst with mom because regardless, we will unconditionally love them. Yeah.
And she couldn't be more on target. They do act the worst because they know you love them unconditionally. They truly know that.
Okay, let's see what Lori has to say. I can't get it to show up. Let's see. Okay. There's also this sense that everyone else's family isn't having this. It's so true. And somehow having wonderful, loving family dinners, this helps dispel that illusion.
Yeah, it's an illusion. And it's like all those holiday meals that you've heard are just wonderful. Some people maybe are lucky, but not every, many families, it's not so beautiful,
Well, and also like kind of, I now have the feeling like if more of it is lovely than not lovely, we've had a huge victory. So it's just having expectations that are different. And Maria says, I don't feel alone hearing this. Maria, we're so glad you were here because you are not alone, really not alone. And anybody who wants to get a community of parents who are supportive, go to our Facebook group, which is Working Hard to Raise Teens. And these conversations are happening there all the time with so much support from loving and caring moms. So Suzanne Schneps, I'm always so grateful that you're here with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And you did have the magic wand. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.